Thank you. It was absolutely incredible, and I think the audience thinks the same because the applause was massive. And I have to say that a few months ago, I was going to States and I was reading the newspaper and I read that Jerome Bela is preparing such an amazing piece. And then a few months after, it's here in my hometown, which is amazing. So thank you so much for this. I wanted to ask you about traveling, because it must be exhausting on one hand, you know, like giving up on planes and taking the trains. But on the other hand, it feels like the artist 100 years ago, you know, traveling by train and like keeping your body in shape and your mind in place to go on stage after 14 hours on train and performing in the theater. How does it work for you?
First of all, thank you for your, thank you for what you said. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks to the audience too. In fact, you know, well, we had a stop in Berlin. Yeah, I didn't want to go right away, Paris, Warsaw. So we had a stop in Berlin. And then I like train because we can see landscapes. And we have another sense of time, you know, and like the duration of coming somewhere. Okay, it will take some hours to go to a city. We went to Italy, now it's Warsaw. I'm so glad, first time I'm being here, and I'm very happy to be in this city that I'm discovering. And no, it's a way of, you know, you dream even when you look at the landscape, when you think about history. I said to Sheila yesterday, I thought about history in here. I mean, Poland being part of Europe, and then I thought of the history. And then this morning I went in the city, and I went to the memorial of the nuns.
Soldiers.
Yes, yeah. And I see sometimes, you know, inscription walls about history. And I'm very touched and moved. In France, we have those kind of writing on walls. People have been killed, so and so. So you are part of the history. And I like that, being out in the city. And then, you take the train, but it's good to have a sense of duration of things, you know, instead of clack, 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 you know. And the landscape, you know, how green it is, and then such thing, and here, this church, this barn. We were looking through the window.
And we both like to read a lot, too.
Yeah,
so
and then we read. So
read
it's perfect.
So you feel more embedded in a way, no?
Yeah,
like,
it's good.
Connected to the nature, and the nature was important for Isadora Duncan a lot as well.
Yeah.
But I heard in one of the radio interviews with you that you said, you know, people think it's about the waves and everything, but you said that it's about being grounded and about the impulses, and it's actually not about, you know, this wavy and flying and all that. It feels like it is, but it's actually more about the, you know, the differences of the movements that are in Isadora Duncan's choreographies and the way you perceive it. So could you please tell us something?
Well, there's to have this kind of a curve movement in the main things in the style of Duncan that I like, that I love, you know, that's why I've been doing this for so many years. It's that there is a continuous movement. And to have a continuous movement, it should be curved. You know, you don't do this and this. You do this, and there's a loop, and then you go another way, you know, and you let it go. And then, okay, there's gravity, and then you, again, to have this curvy movement, you have to get strength from the earth, from the ground, and so it's really a play between earth and sky. And this is what she wrote about. A movement, ondulation is already, you let it go through gravity, and then you resist, you know, it's an unending movement. And I like this kind of a quality, this this element of style, for me, it's important. That's why you have that in Chopin music, for example. You have that with a lot of contemporary musicians, even, you know, Steve Reich. You know, it's about continuous movement with variation. Duncan is about variation. You know, you have a theme, you have a rhythm, and then you can vary it, you know, according to your mood, according to the spur of the movement, of the moment.
Well, you brought Chopin, and I graduated from State Ballet School in Warsaw, and one of the variations that I was preparing for one of the shows was the prelude from Fokine.
Ah oui.
And you know, this is amazing that I can ask about this, because I had this impression that there is a moment when you say the world, and Fokine, actually, he was saying, no, I do something fully different to what Duncan was doing. But actually, this prelude was created before Fokine created Les Sylphides. Yeah. And actually, the moment where the ballerina is doing, in the same moment of the music, the same thing that Duncan was doing when you're saying the world. Have you
I do agree with you, in fact. In fact, Isadora Duncan came to St. Petersburg, I think, in 1905. And then Fokine was one of the ballet masters who liked very much Isadora Duncan. And in fact, he did after that Les Sylphides. And you find all those choreography, I mean, the music that Isadora Duncan has chosen before, like you have certain mazurka and waltzes. Of course, after that, it's completely different from Les Sylphides, naturally. But as for the prelude, you know, because the prelude is done twice, at least, or three times even, I think I was astonished the first time I saw the Fokine prelude. It's so close to Duncan. Well, it's nice to see some influence. We shouldn't be greedy, you know. I think it's nice to see this influence. Just we have to acknowledge it.
Yeah, so
ballet dancers should acknowledge. He was very fond of Isadora Duncan. You know, he was influenced with this kind of a free movement, natural movement. You find that in, for example, this wonderful Firebird, you know, when the girls do the dance around the tree, you know, and it's flowing, and this is beautiful, and they play with the apple and the balls, and it's beautiful, and it's in a way we see the influence of Isadora Duncan. Yeah,
of course. So it's very important, and it was important for Duncan to teach, and you said that she preferred to teach rather than to perform. And how do you feel about that? Like, is it complementary, or, you know, with the time of your extreme career and extraordinary career, did it change? How do you feel about it now, to be on stage, or do you prefer to pass on the knowledge and the experience that you're having?
I think she's right when Sheila said that, or Jerome Bela. Well, we work together with Jerome on the text anyway. She said that. In fact, dance for her was a question of life. You have to think about Europe. At the end of the 19th century, there is a sense of melancholy in all Europe. And there is tension in Europe, you know, and the First World War I will be coming in 13 years anyway. So as an American person from abroad, she felt, I guess, these things about Europe being in this very stressful situation. And then for her, dancing was a question of life. Mm-hmm. And so to bring life again in a free way, you have to take care of the children. She had this idea, like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, that if you train children children are happy in their childhood, I mean, the world would be, I mean, she's utopist, but she thought if the children are happy in their childhood, they will be, I mean, they won't harm, you know, they won't harm people or have bad feelings afterwards as adults. And maybe it was a way of that there won't be no war again. Of course, she was an utopist, so she was a big utopist. She dreamed, like many people at that period, about a new man, a new woman, a new society. And that's why she, when there was a thing about the communists at that period, she thought that would be the new society, with justice, with no more poverty, and well, this is what a dream of life. So that's why for her, teaching was very important. Yeah.
And Sheila, I wanted to ask you about the process. How was it for you? How did the process look like? And your participation? Did you do your own research? And like,
I have that.
Yeah, we cannot pass the microphones.
No. Well, I came into the process as they were rehearsing, and kind of practically in order for Elizabeth to really be able to just concentrate on the dance and not have to worry about transitioning between story and dance. And so, I mean, like anytime Jerome is working on a new piece, he tries things. And things either work or they don't work. And if they work, he works on them more. And if they don't work, he lets them go. You know, I think it's like any experimental kind of process. You try things and they don't work, you move on.
But it's definitely performing, no? It's like, I always think that, you know, giving a lecture is the same like performing the dance, because this is the art of performance, no? So it's very like inclusive way.
Yeah. I think I'm an educator, and I think he sees me as kind of an educator. He told me I look like a teacher. So I think it was this kind of, because the story needs to be told with a kind of connection to the audience, and that I was able to connect also with the story. I was interested in this story, and I was moved very naturally by the dances, and so it kind of came from that. I mean, in France, of course, it's a native French speaker who performs the story. Yeah.
And it's not the first time when Jerome Bela is bringing the portraits of dancers. And I remember I was very moved by the moment in Véronique Drouanneau piece, you know, when she's saying, when she's describing the moment when the swans and the corps de ballet is standing on stage, like constantly being a decoration for the Les Étoiles.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, how do you feel when you're on stage, when you're performing the dances of Isadora Duncan for your whole life, actually longer than she was
yes.
being able to do that?
I shouldn't, yeah. In fact, sometimes there is it's nice to have this kind of it's wonderful with Duncan that you have dance that you can still dance at my age, although there are some dances I don't do anymore. For example, even the revolutionary etude, you are supposed to put your knee on the floor, but I can't anymore. So Jerome, very open-minded, he said, "No, we don't care. Don't put your knee on the floor if you can't lift up again." So I don't put my knee on the floor. So and what else? It's not. I'm sure Duncan wouldn't mind that. Well, so first of all, this I can dance or still dance, and then I kind of I improve my dancing. It's not always the same, and then I keep learning from that dance, and I go deeper and deeper, you know, and and then I dance more with my age, with my experience. Sometimes I think I dance maybe better than 30 years ago.
Yeah, this is a privilege, no, to practice and to.
Because I went through 30 years ago. Well, more. I had 2 children, and then before, and then I had 2 children. So, mother, I dance it. I think sometimes with my. And I think of my daughter when she was running away in the garden, public garden. I think about her when she's running away and she comes back. So I have memories that come into the dances. And so it enriches, it gives richness to the dance with my life, And then what I like about this dance is, as I said, it's about the continuous movement. And it's very, as for the style, I mean, it's really even aesthetic choice very important. And even if, in a way, I'm very anachronical, I don't care. I think this dance has this power in this element of style, in this aesthetic point, that working on the continuous movement, and this continuous movement as an aesthetic point, it's out of time in a way. It's intemporel. It doesn't belong to the time.
Timeless.
It's timeless. Merci. It's timeless. So this is what I want to say. This is timeless. Some element of style of Duncan and of the dance for me are timeless, and it's true. It's a privilege for me to still be dancing at my age. This dance, but I work a lot every day.
Of course. And so, how do you keep yourself in shape, in such an amazing shape? Is it a matter of body and the quality of your body, something that you were born with, or the mental connection, the body and mind?
I guess I had some connection. My family was very much into music, classical, Chopin, Schubert. So I'm close to this kind of repertoire. We went many times to the seaside. Maybe all this thing. But even I could make connection with this dance because when I quit from Cunningham to Duncan, I guess there were some very deep things inside of me, connection, deep connection. And but I had to work. I had to undo the Cunningham style to go into the Duncan style. So I had to work to really embody this style. And then as for to keep in good shape, as you ask me, in fact, I do ballet class. Well, a certain style. I mean, a certain style. In New York, I've been trained in ballet with Margaret Krask, that I love very much. It was Cecchetti technique. Enrico Cecchetti was the ballet master of the Ballet Russe. I mean, the Ballet Russe de Diaghilev. And for example, Anna Pavlova. And when you see Anna Pavlova, she's so fluid, so soft. In fact, Margaret Krask was always saying, soft muscle, just rhythm. And for that, I didn't see a break between my ballet class and Duncan, in fact, because you have, so I don't want to split in category of art, and so I do ballet because nowadays I can throw myself on the floor like in contemporary dance. I can't do that anymore. It hurt my knees. And so I can carry a dancer. So ballet class, as I do my soft muscle, I do my own way in the class, although the teacher is saying you do so, but I do my own. He doesn't mind. And I do because it's very, safe for the body, the alignment of the body. It's very lyrical, at least I dance very lyrical way. So I do that, but then I do my own training, technique somatic, we call somatic technique. I lay on the floor. I do a lot of not stretching. I do my own to keep the fluidity of the movement of the torso, the plasticity. I improvise at home. I put Schubert music, Schubert Lieder that I loved, and I improvise at home. And voila, I do my Duncan work.
Amazing. That's
voila.
amazing.
Yeah.
I have one more question because I came across the article from 80s about Julia Lavigne
Oui.
and about the men doing Duncan dances.
Yeah.
Because obviously Isadora was refusing to take men.
No.
But at least one of the Japanese dancers, this is what I read from the article from 80s. Yeah. But then Julia Lavigne helped Shimazaki to do some, like for example, the revolutionary. But then she said in the interview that she thinks that some of the dances like Mother should not be performed by men. And what do you think about it? Like in the 21st century, when we talk a lot about diversity and the equity, and how do you see it?
In fact, I like to work with men.
That's amazing.
And in fact, I don't agree with Julia, that I love. I don't agree with her. I think even mother etude can be danced with a man, like a father etude. And there was a beautiful dance called Berceuse by Chopin music. And this is for 5 dancers. And the main figure, you can see the mother figure. But I asked Boris Charmat, who is a French dancer, contemporary dancer, to do this central figure. Mm-hmm. And what I like to work with him is, for a man, it's a challenge for a man to have to get this plasticity of the chest and a soft muscle, very caressing hands. And I think it's a very challenge for a man, and it's like a father, it's a father, figure in a way, a loving father. So I like to Boris Charmat's this dance, and with the 4 women who were around him. So this is an example, and he danced the revolutionary etude. And then I work with another French dancer with beautiful, François Chéniaud. And with François Chéniaud, I taught like Les Furies, Brahms Waltz. Mm-hmm. And I like, in fact, the challenge for me. I don't want so much to be up to date. It's a question for me when I look at a body of a man, of a woman, children, when I teach children. For me, it's the same challenge. How to have what I call the plasticity of the torso, the continuous movement, how you play with gravity, how you let it go, and then you play with like desire or whatever, addressing to the space, and then, So for me, I don't care. I have a body in front of me who is willing to work on the repertory, children, adults, women, men. It's the same question. I don't ask why. And I want them to have this kind of a very simple presence, to be there very simply, have a simple gesture, and to work on a simplicity too. This is another aesthetical choice, very important. The simplicity, of the gesture. Voila.
Thank you. This is incredible. Maybe there are some questions at the audience. We have like time for maybe 2-3 questions. I can also translate. Jeśli mają Państwo pytania po polsku, oczywiście też proszę. Tylko niestety nie mogę podać mikrofonu, więc prosiłabym o głośne pytania. Are there any questions?
There.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the first inspiration of Isadora Duncan, which was mass painting of ancient Greece, yes?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm asking you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
How it works for you, this
how it works for me, what?
The hieronomy, this moment of and the inspiration of the ancient Greece, yes? The vase paintings, how does it work for you? Do you get inspiration from the visual arts, and do you use the visual art and the vase paintings whilst you are working on your in your practice?
Of course, I love the classical Greek art, the 5th century before Christ art. I love, like at the Louvre, it's wonderful to see the Venus of Delo. And even when I walk in the street, I saw sometimes, you have some Greek, kind of a Greek sculpture also on top, of houses. You have, so I like what I like in this Greek art at that period. I like the softness of the muscle, the softness of the woman body in it, and the man body of Apollo, whatever, I love the softness of the body, how it and how you can see the kind of a curvy movement in it. Yeah. I mean, that was a hit. It was an idea of Jerome. Enfin, Jerome asked me which gesture could come directly from the Greece, and there was this thing. You have that in a bacchanal, and what I like in this movement that you find, like very often in Brahms' waltz, some people ask me, what does that mean? When François Chéniaud asked me, what does that mean, this? And I had to think about it. In fact, it's a way, it's a sense of joy, in fact, a sense of joy. This, voilà.
So maybe I'll ask, you did this amazing project about Auguste Rodin, no?
Oui. Yes.
So can you say something? Because this is the, direct inspiration from visual arts, and very often we forget about the fact that we get inspiration from the visual arts in the performing arts. So maybe you're fond of saying something about that.
I did a performance in a garden. It was wonderful. In a garden of Musée Rodin. At that time, it was like a long time ago, in '87. The garden was very free. Now it's very well kept. At that time, there was an awkward, you have apple trees and stuff. It was a mess almost, but I loved it. So I did a performance, and then we went through a space inside, and I did So for why Rodin? It's because I found there's a lot of connection between Rodin and Isadora Duncan. You have a way, when Duncan, when you press the floor, there is a sense that movement is coming out of earth, And you have this same thing with Rodin. Here you have a piece of stone, and then from the stone come a body, the sculpture is coming from the stone, and he let the stone, Rodin, you see the stone, and then the body, the shape is coming out of it. And you have this thing with Duncan, like suddenly from the gesture, something is coming from inside, something is coming from inside, or it's coming out of earth. So there was this thing that I find a closeness. The thing is that you have those movements, all those sinus movements, you have that with Rodin, and you have with Duncan. And then you have all the importance of the hand. Like you see Le Bourgeois de Calais, for example, and a lot of hands, he made sculpture of hands, and you have a lot of hands he put together, he make combination with hands, you see? Like the creation of with men and women in two hands. Well, so there is in the hands is very important for Duncan, as you have seen. And the hands, too, is very important as expressiveness for Rodin. And then there was this thing about Rodin and Duncan that there is no ugliness. It's all expression. And he makes a sculpture of an old lady, or he makes a sculpture of the bourgeois de Calais, and they are very awful because it's terrible moment of they should give the keys to the English people, and so it's this terrible moment in the history of Calais. And so there is expressiveness. There is no ugliness. There is truth and expressiveness. You see, expression. And so there is beauty. Is this? Yeah. It's not. There is no ugliness for them. It's beauty when it's very true and is a really expression of life and emotion.
A matter of quality rather than something.
Excuse me?
A matter of quality, different qualities and expression.
Yeah.
Amazing. Any other questions? We have time for one more, maybe.
Yes.
I want to ask in the way you present us the story, the storyline, and the history, and then also the way you include the act of presenting it to us as well within the performance. Like I'm sure you are aware of this. There were moments where I felt that you are giving me too much.
Okay.
In the sense that it mostly combines. So I felt like what I was going through combined with your narrative. At some moments I was thinking maybe you can leave more space for interpretation. It's my personal opinion. I'm not criticizing. I'm wondering how do you it seems like you're delivering us a lot, feeding us a lot with the information. And what is your pleasure? You have a kind of freedom in.
Is it a question about the story itself, or is it a question of how I deliver the story?
More of the interaction between the story and the performance, and how we perceive it as individuals, as people who are watching it.
Well, the story, of course, I didn't write the story. The story came from the parts of the story that Jerome and Elizabeth decided were important to connect with those certain dances. Yeah?
Oui,
because
yes.
it came from the autobiography. And in terms of my delivery or how I tell the story myself, I tell the story as I would tell any story, connecting to certain words, and I guess I don't totally understand the question, but if it's a question of the way I read the story, or the way I tell the story with my voice, it's really me, it's who I am, so there's nothing forced. I'm American too, so it's also maybe cultural. But I mean, I think one of the reasons he chose me to do this story is because I am American, and I do have, that connection with Isadora, and also I really am exactly as I kind of tell the story. It's who I am, so I'm sorry, I just can't change really. Yeah.
But was it a matter of purpose? The meanings. So there are different layers of interpretation. That there is you repeat the dances first with the music, then with the words, then without. And, you know, as I understood correctly, that was the question about the purpose. Why Jerome Bela, and why did you decide to work like this, you know, to explicitly tell
I think,
the story? Yes?
right, sorry, I didn't totally understand. No, I think the reason why there's so much repetition and so much explanation is because really she was one of the first modernists, and really he wanted to connect what was happening in her making the choreography, which is really the first time that the words were connected with the movements, with real meaning and intention and imagination being connected with the movements, right? And yes, of course, please.
In fact, Jerome came to one of my workshops, and that day I taught water study, and I say words, you know, and he loved it. But he loved that, and he said, "Well, I will call you." And I said, "Well, okay," but he did call me. Okay, he did call me. So I think what he likes about putting words with gesture, there is so much. He likes the literacy. I say.
The literal meaning.
Yeah, literal meaning of the dance, because, I mean, Duncan, it is what it is, in fact. So in a way, it's very postmodern. Okay, it's design. Of course, it's a way for her to show what's design with this gesture, you know. But it's very literal in a way, and it's very postmodern in that way. And he liked that because he liked words. Jerome Bela liked words, in fact, you know. And that's he found that wonderful. This kind of a relationship so close. It is what it is. It is the waves. There are the waves. She dreams about. She is in contemplation in front of the sea, and this is waves. You know, this is voilà. So.
And I think just to add on to what you're saying, in Jerome's work, in a lot of his work, or one of the things he wants to allow people to do is to give them time to really see, to give them time with repetition of something, to each time see something new in the same thing, that they've seen before, because it's never the same.
Yeah.
And also, the more we see something, the more we can take out of it. And so I think that's maybe why in this work there's a lot of repetition of each dance.
Yeah. And even the dance have repetition, but you know, the music too are repetitive. I mean, Schubert, you A, B, A, B, B, A. But she said, well, what not? I do the same in dance. And so, but it's a challenge for a dancer because it's variation, you know, it's a thing. It's like in Baroque music, it's variation. And in fact, in Chopin, I never do the same. I can't. I don't want to do the same. That's you know, I run some and then I don't run. I suspend and then I lose my equilibrium and my balance, and I'm already somewhere else. You know.
That's the beauty of performing art. It's even if it's the repetition, it's never the same, and we have different quality every day, and ability of our body every day, and that's the beauty of performing art, I believe, and also giving the freedom of speech for the dancer who are usually mute whilst they're dancing. That's, for me, it's fabulous. So thank you so much, and
thank you.
That was absolutely fabulous, and enjoy your stay in Warsaw.
Thank you.
And dziękuję Państwu bardzo.
Merci.
Dziękuję.